After 9/11, the world turned its attention to Afghanistan. But it turns out that Osama bin Laden ultimately was hiding in a comfortable suburb in the country next door, Pakistan. Possibly for years. Reports are the home was built for him in 2005. That has American officials asking questions about the Pakistani government. No question, our relationship with Pakistan has been complex. We do launch our Predator drone strikes there, while at the same time giving them billions in aid, even with their known links to Taliban and Islamic extremists, not to mention the knowledge that bin Laden is living just outside of Islamabad. Well, now there's congressional pressure to revisit our relationship with the Pakistani military and intelligence services. What did they know? Were they hiding Osama bin Laden? And with us is Congressman Tom Rooney. He visited Pakistan just 2 weeks ago, coming within 30 miles, surely unknowingly, of Osama bin Laden's hideout. And Congressman, it's a pleasure to have you back. We've had some very interesting analysis in this program around the Pakistani relationship. Brett McGurk citing the perceived abandonment narrative that exists in Pakistan going back to the United States withdrawal from relations with them in 1989. How would you suggest we model this 21st century foreign policy that clearly is going to have to be hammered out, not just relative to Pakistan, but relative to the totality of what we're seeing in the Middle East this year?
Well, certainly, you know, when we were in Pakistan, we met with government officials, we met with military leaders, we met with elements of the Pakistani army in Peshawar. You know, Pakistan is completely discombobulated. You're not really sure who's in control. We think the military's in control. There's elements of the ISI that's not necessarily on the same page as the government or the military. They're intimidated by terrorist organizations within their own country. So Pakistan has played ball with us in some regards with regard to the Taliban in the Fatah region and Waziristan when we were pressing them from the west and they were pressing them from the east. Pakistanis lost a lot of people in some of those fights, but then we hear about this and the fact that they apparently either didn't know that he was there, which would be shocking. They knew and they tipped us off, or they knew and they didn't want to tell us. You know, there's a couple bad options there, but we should reserve judgment and the accusations that we're going to make until we find out what the truth is with regard to what Pakistan knew. But certainly it doesn't look good. It's hard for, I think, us in America to believe that he could build this kind of compound, live this close to a military school, and then not know about it. But again, Pakistan is much different than America. I can tell you that from just being there.
And then perhaps, again, the most relevant issue to Americans right now is the state of the war on terror, the consequence of this event relative to that, and specifically the building efforts like the one we were just hearing from Jake Dilberto, who's a former Marine corporal, to accelerate the withdrawal of ground troops from Afghanistan to focus on precision operations like the one we've witnessed the past few days.
Yeah, I disagree with the corporal there, by the way. I understand he was there 9 months ago. We were there last week. We met with Petraeus. The gains that all the generals across, we were in Helmand, we were in the northern areas. The general said over the last 8 months, the progress has been dramatic, to use their term that we heard over and over again, and training up the Afghan army and even the police. In fact, where they used to just take anybody, now they're actually selective of who they take in. Look, Karzai is corrupt. That area of the world is very difficult to deal with. But if we can get to the place in July, we're going to begin our drawdown in July. The fact that the corporal wants to precipitate withdrawal now after the gains that we've just made doesn't really make much sense to me. You know, let's see where we are in July and then begin what was already predetermined as a scheduled withdrawal. I want them home tomorrow, believe me. But I mean, we have to do it the right way.
What would you advocate as the scale or framing for the restructuring of our military and intelligence presence in Afghanistan and Pakistan beginning in July, considering we got 100,000 troops on the ground now, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, you have to look at whether or not the Afghan National Army is able to protect their individual village and hamlets throughout Afghanistan from the Taliban coming back into control. Look, the people in Afghanistan hate the Taliban. They hate them as much as anybody else. It's not like, that they're their, friends and they're just sort of like keeping them at bay until we leave. That's not the truth. They want them gone too. So if they get to a point where they figure out that the Afghan National Army can secure them, then that's when we start withdrawing our troops in large measures. The idea of having the kind of operation in Pakistan that we have in Afghanistan is absurd. Pakistan is an industrial country. It's much further advanced. Afghanistan is, you're living centuries in the past in Afghanistan. Pakistan is a modern country with millions upon millions of people, albeit with a disjointed government. So you can't look at it in a vacuum. That's not a fair assessment.
Understood. And finally, one of some of the most appealing framing around here we've had in the conversation around the bin Laden kill has been to look at it as a comma and not a period in the progression of this event. Do you agree with that framing?
Absolutely. Somebody's going to fill in the vacuum for bin Laden. Look, May 1st was a great day in American history. It's a great day in the war against terrorism. It validates a lot of what we're trying to do and the fact that we will never rest until those that do us harm are brought to justice. That's what the message of May 1st is. But somebody is going to come up in the ranks, and we always have to be diligent. But we got a lot of good intel out of that compound that he was seized at. And right now, the powers in our country are working around the clock to make sure that if other bad guys are sprouting up, which they would be right now, we're going to go get them too.
All right, Congressman Rooney, a pleasure. Thanks for the time this afternoon.
Thanks, Dylan.
All right, coming up, is there ever a